Deep within the tranquil woods and rolling hills of Pennsylvania, timeless enigmas are buried. Here you will find stone chambers, forgotten symbols, and legends too peculiar to dismiss. This is an exploration of a forgotten history, a place where the earth holds memories and certain mysteries will not lie dormant. The Susquehanna River flows placidly today, but in a distant past, it was a witness to events far more significant than canoe journeys and commerce. Along its fertile banks, in the heart of the Commonwealth, the ground swells into strange, methodical mounds. These are not random hills carved by weather and ages. Their symmetry and precision suggest a clear intention, and they have been speaking to anyone willing to hear. When the first colonists arrived, these earthen humps, rising where no natural landform should be, immediately caught their attention. They questioned the local Susquehannock people about the mound's origins and purpose. The Susquehannocks, a people noted for their imposing height and formidable reputation, answered with caution. Some claimed the mounds were hallowed ground. Others suggested they were markers of a deeper secret, something their own ancestors had not created but had instead inherited. Colonial journals described the Susquehannocks themselves as towering, broad-shouldered warriors adorned with intricate tattoos and unusual armor. Captain John Smith even wrote that they were nearly a head taller than most Europeans. Yet even this powerful tribe appeared to revere the mounds as artifacts of a much older, almost forgotten time. As settlements expanded, the mounds drew intense interest. Farmers, driven by both need and intrigue, excavated them, unearthing unexpected discoveries. While they found skeletal remains, many were of individuals far larger than the norm. Skulls were reported as oversized, jawbones as immense, and in some instances, burial vaults were lined with stone caskets or marked with strange carvings. Stories circulated of skeletons measuring more than 7 feet in length, accompanied by tools fashioned from copper and mica, and bones etched with mysterious symbols. These findings were not always formally recorded. In fact, many were quietly covered up or simply lost. Some point fingers at the Smithsonian Institution, accusing it of gathering these peculiar artifacts only to hide them away in secure vaults, forever removed from public view. The truth of that claim is debatable, but the voids in the historical record are undeniable. At a site near Safe Harbor in the early 20th century, a massive burial chamber was allegedly uncovered. Local lore describes a dome-shaped mound which, upon being opened, revealed an array of bodies arranged with mathematical exactitude. The largest skeleton, according to witnesses, was over 8 feet tall, clutching a crystal-like sphere. Shortly after, a corporation purchased and leveled the site. Its contents were either carted off or reburied, this time beneath layers of asphalt. A similar story emerged from Towanda, where a farmer digging a well discovered a subterranean chamber on his property. He described beehive-shaped stone walls and human remains unlike any he had seen. He took some of the discovered artifacts to a local pub for display, but they vanished one night. So did the chamber. Subsequent surveys of the property found no trace of its existence. Perhaps the most perplexing feature of these mounds is their astronomical alignment. Archaeological charts reveal that many mounds correspond with solstice and equinox points, and even track the paths of certain constellations. For a culture deemed primitive, this degree of celestial accuracy is difficult to account for. In Juniata County, one mound was situated atop a hill providing a clear vantage of the sunrise on both solstices. Before its demolition in the 20th century, a local minister claimed to have entered a stone room beneath it, where he saw obsidian knives, a series of discs carved with spirals and stars, and felt an intense static charge in the air. Days later, government representatives arrived, secured the area, and offered no public explanation. To this day, whispers surround the few mounds that have survived. Locals speak of flickering lights, strange electromagnetic fields, and the unsettling feeling of being watched. One camper near a mound in the 1980s reported seeing luminous figures patrolling its edge before sunrise. A construction manager near the Conestoga River recounted that after his crew bulldozed a mound for a road, 3 of his workers suffered injuries in bizarre accidents, and a subsequent fire destroyed their project records. The folklore is equally unsettling. Elders in nearby communities tell of sky people entombed in the mounds, tall beings whose eyes were said to glow blue in the firelight. Other tales propose the mounds are not graves at all, but markers in a forgotten energy grid, akin to acupuncture points on the planet. Stories are told of those who attempted to plunder the mounds only to be struck by illness or disappear completely. Today, the majority of these ancient structures have vanished, plowed over, built upon, and forgotten. A few are marked by signs that offer a vague nod to their existence without exploring the deeper legends. But for those who have lived near them, who have felt this strange resonance from the ground, the truth is more complex. What was the true purpose of the Susquehannock Mounds? Were they mere burial sites, or something more? Gateways, celestial observatories, or warnings? Why do so many accounts describe giant skeletons, alien symbols, and unnatural events? Whatever their function, one thing is certain: the land has not forgotten. The mounds may be silent now, but the questions they pose echo louder than ever. And if you should find yourself walking near the Susquehanna as evening falls, and the air grows heavy as the birds fall silent, be wary of staring too long at those gentle rises in the earth. Something beneath them may be staring back. Bald Eagle Mountain casts an immense shadow across central Pennsylvania. It runs along the spine of the Appalachian Range, its slopes covered in dense forest and ancient stone. To the average hiker, it is a place of rugged, peaceful beauty. Yet beneath this serenity lies something else, for on certain peaks, arranged in deliberate configurations, stand colossal stone monoliths. Some are erect, others lean, but all appear profoundly out of place. For generations, locals have wondered about these stones. Are they simply random products of geology, or were they placed with purpose by ancient hands? For more than 100 years, hikers and surveyors have documented these oddities. Isolated vertical stones, many weighing several tons, perched in locations where no glacier or rockslide could have logically left them. Many of these stones are balanced with an almost impossible precision. Some are stacked, while others are arranged in lines or circles. Furthermore, they frequently face specific celestial phenomena, sunrise points, equinox positions, or the alignment of stars. It strains credulity to believe it is all a matter of chance. One such arrangement is found near the summit of the mountain's eastern ridge. A massive, flat-faced upright slab, roughly 10 feet high, stands alone at a cliff's edge. It is surrounded by 4 smaller stones that create a semicircle, forming something like a keyhole that frames the horizon. Each spring and autumn, during the equinox, the rising sun shines directly through the gap between the monolith and a second standing stone 100 feet away. The alignment is too perfect to be accidental. Locals have named this site the Druid's Gate. They claim it hums with energy just before dawn on the week of the equinox, when the wind blows in a particular way. Some have reported that electronic gadgets fail in its vicinity and that animals will not approach it. The most peculiar tales, however, come from those who have spent the night there. One man described vivid dreams of stone circles and fire ceremonies. Another awoke to find geometric shapes drawn in the frost around his tent. There is no official explanation for the site. Geologists have identified the stones as ancient sandstone that likely broke away from the cliff, but they cannot account for the symmetry, the placement, or the astronomical correlation. And this is not an isolated case. Farther west, near Port Matilda, another strange formation exists. A series of long, flat stones are laid end to end across a ridge, resembling a path leading into the wilderness. This so-called stone line extends for nearly half a mile, vanishing into the woods and re-emerging by a stream. The stones share a uniform size and width, a consistency that natural erosion could not produce. Local legends say the path was used for moonlit rituals by ancient sky watchers who mapped the heavens and left their warnings in stone. In the valleys below, farmers plowing their fields have discovered smaller stone markers, each etched with concentric circles or spiral patterns. Their meaning is lost. Some have drawn comparisons to ancient Celtic Ogham or early Norse runes. Yet there is no proof those cultures ever reached Pennsylvania. Nevertheless, the symbols reappear across several counties. Were they a form of language, a code, or simply decorative markings? It is impossible to say when there is no one left to translate. There is another hypothesis, one rarely discussed in public, but often whispered among local historians. The monoliths were not intended to be viewed from the ground, but from the sky. This sounds fantastic until one examines old aerial photographs taken before modern development. Many of the formations, when mapped, create geometric shapes, circles, triangles, and long, straight lines, visible only from above. It is as if a celestial map was carved into the landscape itself. Then there are the stones that not only align with celestial objects, but also replicate their patterns. Near Beech Creek, a circle of upright stones perfectly mirrors the shape and spacing of the Pleiades star cluster. Another formation to the south, near Mill Hall, consists of two parallel rows of stones with a central marker, an exact replica of the Orion constellation as seen from a specific viewpoint at dawn in early winter. Were these sites ancient calendars, temples, or signal beacons? Who could have constructed them, and for what purpose? The Susquehannocks left no stories of building such structures, and their oral histories only speak of the mountains as places of great power and danger. Some legends tell of sleeping giants beneath the hills, guarded by stone sentinels who watch over certain paths. There is also the enduring folklore of the Stone Caller, a creature, half man and half rock, who is said to awaken when the stars return to their rightful positions. He is described as the guardian of the gate between the sky and the root, a cryptic phrase often associated with the monoliths of Bald Eagle. Some researchers propose that these formations predate all known human presence in the region, perhaps the work of a pre-indigenous civilization that has been completely lost to history. Others maintain the stones are natural, shaped by long-vanished glaciers and landslides. Yet even those who argue for natural causes often concede that the patterns, the alignments, and the repetition feel undeniably deliberate. The mystery deepens with reports of magnetic anomalies near some of the stones. Compasses spinning wildly, GPS devices malfunctioning, sudden drops in air temperature, and, in a few documented cases, hikers experiencing temporary amnesia after passing through stone-lined pathways. These are not mere campfire tales, but detailed, eerily consistent accounts from people separated by years and with no connection to one another. The stone formations seem to emit something, an energy, a presence, a memory that we do not yet comprehend. Today, many of these sites are concealed deep in the woods, forgotten by all but a curious few. No signs mark their location, and no official trails lead to them. Some believe this is by design, that the stones were meant to be protected, shielded from the casual observer, or perhaps guarded against. So, if you find yourself wandering through Bald Eagle Mountain and spot a solitary, standing stone in a clearing, do not assume it is a random occurrence. Tread with caution. Observe your surroundings. You may be standing within an ancient map, one inscribed in stone and shadow, intended for a sky that is no longer our own. The river communicates in a language far older than speech, a dialect etched not into air but into stone. Along the meandering course of the Allegheny River, where water has carved its path through wooded hills and forgotten settlements, ancient engravings narrate a story that no one can fully interpret. These are the petroglyphs, strange, sometimes unsettling images chiseled into rock, often in locations reachable only by boat or with great care. And they are scattered everywhere if you know where to find them. On flat sandstone boulders near the river's edge, scores of symbols stretch across the rock face like an untranslated manuscript. Some are recognizable as spirals, handprints, or simple human-like figures. But others are profoundly perplexing. Intricate star charts, bizarre creatures with elongated limbs, abstract geometric patterns, and beings with round heads and radiating lines that eerily resemble what a modern person might describe as figures in helmets. The most well-known collection of these carvings is situated near Parker's Landing. Known to the locals as the Indian God Rocks, this site contains over 50 visible petroglyphs. Though time has worn many of them away, enough survive to make a lasting impression. These were clearly not idle scratchings. Some of the figures appear to be holding implements or staffs. Others seem to be levitating or emerging from spirals, which some researchers interpret as portals or doorways. Then there are the starbursts and ladder-like shapes that appear at multiple sites, always oriented in specific directions. Indigenous oral histories state that these stones carry messages, warnings, or guides, even sacred agreements with the land. But no living person can fully decipher their meaning. The native peoples who might have created them, possibly the ancestors of the Lenape or Shawnee, left behind few written accounts, and some academics suggest the carvings are far, far older. The petroglyphs near Franklin, at a place called Rainbow Rocks, feature a recurring design, an inverted triangle encircled by 7 dots. While archaeologists have often dismissed this as a decorative element, local elders claim it symbolizes the Watchers from the 7 Fires, a phrase connected to a much older legend about visitors who descended from the sky to teach, warn, and then disappear. It is unknown whether the 7 dots signify stars or something else entirely, but the symbol is found on petroglyphs located more than 100 miles apart. In certain areas, the carvings are located high above the water, in places that would have been nearly impossible to reach without scaffolds or ropes. Why would anyone carve symbols where they could not be easily seen, unless they were intended for something or someone else to view? There are also striking similarities across several river systems, including the Allegheny, the Monongahela, and even into the Ohio River Basin. The same motifs appear repeatedly. Humanoids with arms outstretched, concentric circles with a central point, and zigzag lines that suggest motion or vibration. One stone near Brady's Bend depicts a figure standing between 2 swirling vortexes, its arms raised and its head surrounded by rays. Below is a downward-pointing triangle. Some speculate it is a stylized map. Others believe it is a message no longer meant for us. While many of these carvings are in isolated areas, some have been found in odd proximity to modern structures. In a secluded hollow just beneath a defunct railroad bridge, a set of glyphs was discovered in the 1970s that seemed to have appeared overnight. They did not match any known indigenous style. A group of amateur investigators documented them, noting the rock showed no signs of weathering. Theories range from a hoax to a psychic imprint to a spontaneous manifestation. No official archaeologist ever examined them. A year later, the glyphs were quietly destroyed by vandals. But the mystery extends beyond the symbols themselves. It resides in the atmosphere of these places. Many visitors report a strange feeling. Time seems to slow down. An unusual quiet settles over the riverbank, even amid the sound of birds. Some people have described sudden headaches, intense emotional surges, or the distinct sense of being observed. One kayaker who discovered a glyph-covered stone during a low tide spoke of an overwhelming feeling of sorrow and guilt, so intense that he began to weep without understanding why. There's also a disturbing trend that has emerged in certain locations: the disappearance of petroglyphs. Stones known to have borne carvings in the mid-20th century have since been found scrubbed clean or removed entirely. In some instances, even the photographic evidence has vanished. While erosion and vandalism can explain some of these losses, the sheer quantity of vanished glyphs is suspicious. Who is erasing these ancient messages and why? Not everyone is convinced they were human messages to begin with. A fringe theory that is quietly gaining traction proposes that the glyphs were never intended for human eyes, but are part of a code left by beings not native to this planet, or perhaps not even to this reality. The Star People stories, often dismissed by academics, speak of visitors who arrived in glowing vessels that traveled not on water, but on beams of light. Some indigenous myths claim the symbols were instructions passed down from these beings, recorded by early tribes but never fully understood. In one documented Lenape story, the river was a sacred artery, a reflection of the sky, and the stones were places where the sky people had touched the earth's skin. The carvings, the story says, were their fingerprints, a poetic way of describing the traces they left behind. Could this be more than a metaphor? Even skeptics agree that the carvings warrant further investigation. The challenge is that many are on private property, overlooked by official surveys, or slowly disappearing due to weathering and rising river levels. An entire language may be fading away, one chisel mark at a time. But not all is lost. A small contingent of modern researchers, part archaeologist, part mystic, part explorer, is quietly documenting what remains. They have started to cross-reference satellite imagery, celestial charts, and geological data, searching for a larger pattern. Some are convinced the petroglyphs are not just messages but elements of a greater system, nodes in a forgotten network linked by energy lines that once pulsed with a purpose. Whether these carvings are missives from the past or echoes of something not entirely human, one fact is certain. Someone took great pains to leave them here. Someone who could read the stars. Someone who understood that these rivers would carry not only water, but memory. So, the next time you find yourself near the Alleghenies shore, examine the rocks closely. What appears to be a simple smudge or crack might be something more. It could be a whisper from 1,000 years ago, or even longer, a tale told in stone, still awaiting someone who can speak its language. Follow the twisting path of Octoraro Creek in southeastern Pennsylvania, and you will enter a land cloaked in mist and steeped in secrets. Its name may not resonate like other famous mysteries, but among the locals, this region carries a legacy far stranger than it appears. Here, nestled among rolling hills and deep woods, is the story of a people who seem to have simply vanished, not merely pushed aside or erased by conflict or time, but consumed by something much older. These were the so-called lost tribes of Octoraro, said to be guardians of sacred wisdom and keepers of something that was never fully grasped. Unlike the well-documented Susquehannock or Lenape, this group left behind very few traces. Early colonial documents mention them only in passing and often in cryptic terms, calling them the stone keepers or those who speak to the ground. These are not just fanciful names. The first trappers and settlers described encountering native people who lived not in communal villages, but in hidden enclaves, stone huts with slanted roofs, always built partially into the earth. They were said to communicate more through gestures than words and would disappear without a sound when approached. One explorer in the late 1600s wrote of discovering what he called a sunken village near the creek's mouth, a collection of small stone dwellings arranged around a perfectly round stone well. Inside the well, a spiral staircase descended into darkness. When he tried to go down, his local guide restrained him, warning that the watcher's wake below the village was empty. The following spring, a flood reportedly swept the entire structure away. It was never found again, but the whispers about the Octoraro people endured. They were reputed to be master stonemasons, capable of shaping boulders without tools. A few unusual stone artifacts, inconsistent with known regional styles, have been unearthed in the area. One such discovery, now lost, was a tablet inscribed with a star map and a series of symbols resembling modern binary code. A farmer who found it while digging a foundation showed it to a local antiquarian. Days later, the artifact vanished from his barn, followed by a suspicious fire. Some blamed arson, others blamed the watchers. Then there is the sound. For generations, people living along the creek have reported hearing a low, resonant hum coming from beneath the earth. It is not constant, but it appears regularly, often near dawn or just before a significant rainfall. A retired geologist once set up equipment to record it and concluded the sound originated from under a thick patch of forest near a bend in the creek. He described it as a standing frequency, as if the ground itself were vibrating due to some internal mechanism. He later retracted his claims and refused to discuss the matter further. The people connected to this region, the Lost Tribe, as they have become known, are seldom mentioned in official histories. When they are, it is merely as a strange footnote. But if you delve into the journals of colonial surveyors, you begin to see patterns, references to invisible guides, hidden stone roads, and the ones who never age. One particularly unnerving account from 1723 comes from a Quaker missionary. He claimed to have met a woman in the Octororo woods who spoke perfect English but was dressed in clothing made of woven reeds and fur. She warned him not to disturb what sleeps in the ground, and spoke of a time when the sky will crack and the old blood will rise. He dismissed her as mad, but when he turned to depart, she had vanished, leaving no footprints in the soft ground. The creek itself is central to the enigma. Octororo Creek behaves strangely compared to nearby waterways. It floods when others are calm. Fish seem to avoid certain sections, and people who swim in its more secluded pools sometimes emerge with strange burns or rashes, even though the water test is clean. A local legend suggests the creek is alive, serving as a guardian or a jailer for whatever lies beneath. Another story claims it is a wound in the earth that never fully healed, one that leaks time and memory. Then there are the stone circles. Nearly a dozen of them are scattered throughout the Octororo wilderness. Often mistaken for old property lines or colonial fire pits, they bear a striking resemblance to the ancient stone circles of Europe. Each is made of smooth river stones placed with deliberate spacing. At the center of each circle, buried under soil and moss, lies a single shard of obsidian, too perfectly shaped to be in natural formation. Some say the stones emit a faint pulse at night. Others claim that if you sleep inside a circle, you'll have dreams in languages you do not know. In the 1950s, a group of amateur archaeologists tried to map all the circles. Their notes indicated that when connected, the circles formed a nearly flawless sigil, a shape resembling a double spiral with a central line. Before they could publish their work, the lead researcher died under mysterious circumstances, and his notes disappeared from the local historical society's archive. Another enduring tale concerns a narrow cave opening near the southern end of the creek, which locals call the Whisper Hole. It is barely wide enough for a person to enter and descend sharply into the earth. Inside, visitors have reported hearing voices, not quite whispers, but a sound like chanting carried on a wind that does not stir the air. Those who have ventured too deep have described bizarre phenomena: lost time, nausea, and, in one instance, emerging from the cave to find an unfamiliar object in their bag, a carved stone pendant shaped like an eye. To date, no academic institution has conducted a serious excavation of the region. It remains rural, quiet, and purposefully ignored. Some believe there is a reason for this, that the mystery is not just inconvenient but actively protected. The descendants of the early settlers who still live near the creek become guarded when asked about the legends. Some say the Lost Tribe still roams the woods, untouched by the passage of time. Others believe they returned to wherever they originated. A few think they never left at all, but simply sank deeper into the earth, becoming one with the stone they revered. Perhaps it is all just folklore. Perhaps the Lost Tribe never existed. But something moved through the Octororo wilderness, something that understood the stars, that worked in stone, and that left behind clues not easily dismissed. A people forgotten by history, but remembered by the land. And when the fog settles in thick and the creek murmurs just a little louder than usual, it feels as if the forest itself is recalling them. Tioga County is a tranquil area nestled in Pennsylvania's northern tier. It is a place of winding roads, deep forests, and long periods of silence, broken only by the sound of wind in the trees or the cry of a hawk. But beneath its surface, deep within its forgotten ridges, there are whispers of something far stranger. Here, in the wooded hills near Pine Creek Gorge and along the slopes of the Allegheny Plateau, lie hidden structures that defy easy explanation. They are not caves or natural formations, but stone chambers, subterranean rooms built with architectural precision. No one knows who constructed them, when they were made, or why. Locals refer to them as the Tioga Vaults. They do not appear on any maps. Most were discovered by chance by hunters, hikers, or farmers clearing their land. One of the first written records dates to 1889, when a surveyor reported finding a stone room beneath a moss-covered hill. He described a rectangular space, roughly 12 feet by 8, lined with expertly fitted stones, assembled without mortar but interlocked with remarkable skill. There was no obvious entrance to the chamber. It had to be accessed by crawling through what appeared to be a natural fissure in the hillside. Inside, he found only dust and an unnerving silence. Yet the room felt wrong, he noted in his journal, as if something had been waiting and had left just moments before I arrived. That was only the beginning. In the following decades, more chambers were found across Tioga County. Each was unique in shape, but strangely similar in its construction. Some were square, others were circular with domed ceilings fashioned from overlapping stone slabs. A few had niches carved into the walls, like primitive shelves. One contained a sculpted pedestal at its center. There were never any tools, bones, or artifacts. Only the structure itself, and always that peculiar hum in the air, a stillness too profound to be natural. Official archaeologists tend to dismiss them as colonial root cellars or ice houses, but that explanation quickly falls apart. Many of these chambers are buried deep within dense, uninhabited forests, far from any known settlement. Some are built into cliff faces, while others are situated on remote hillsides where colonial agriculture or storage would have been impractical. Then there is the level of craftsmanship. Stones fitted so perfectly that no light can pass between them, with no signs of chisel marks or mortar, only flawless placement. In the 1970s, a college student researching local folklore claimed to have mapped 6 of these structures across the county. When he connected their locations, he found they formed a near-perfect hexagon, with each point equidistant from the next. This discovery was never published. The student dropped out of college mid-semester, left town, and reportedly never discussed his research again. Locals tell stories about the chambers, though often indirectly. There's talk of old places where the ground breathes, and houses that were never made for people. Some believe the chambers are ancient observatories, built to align with solstice sunrises or lunar cycles. Others whisper of long-collapsed underground passages that once connected the vaults across the region, forming a forgotten transit network. One of the most unsettling tales dates to 1932, when 2 teenage brothers discovered a chamber while tracking a deer. The entrance was concealed behind a jumble of boulders, and the air inside was cold and dry. They claimed the room was hexagonal, with 6 walls converging inward and a circular opening in the ceiling that led directly to the sky. One of the boys climbed up to look out the top and saw only a swirling blackness, even though it was midday with the sun high overhead. Frightened, they left. One of them never set foot in the woods again. A few researchers have attempted to study the vaults with modern technology. Ground-penetrating radar scans conducted near one site in the early 2000s revealed an entire complex beneath the hill, multiple rooms arranged in a honeycomb pattern, connected by narrow corridors. Before any excavation could be organized, the land was suddenly sold to a private owner, and access was forbidden. Whatever lies beneath that hill remains undisturbed. And yet, the chambers continue to whisper their secrets. One theory circulating among independent researchers is that the vaults are memory chambers, places designed not to store physical objects, but something intangible, like ideas or energy, perhaps a form of ancient archive that does not rely on written language. Some have even suggested that if you sit quietly inside one for long enough, you stop hearing your own thoughts and start hearing someone else's. There are individuals, those who are sensitive to such things, who have sat inside the chambers and claim to have experienced visions. Flickers of cities made of stone and glass, the sound of deep drumming from beneath the earth, and a voice speaking in a language they did not know but somehow understood. One man spent a night in a chamber and emerged convinced that the structures are not empty. They are waiting, charged, and preserved. And then there are the compasses. Time and again, explorers have brought compasses into the vaults only to watch the needles spin erratically, magnetic interference in the middle of nowhere. One chamber, known only to a few and nicknamed the Eye, sits in the center of a small clearing where no plants grow. It is oval-shaped with a domed ceiling and a flat, perfectly polished black stone set in the middle of the floor. The stone reflects no light. Cameras malfunction inside the room, and batteries drain instantly. Those who have entered and stood in the center say the air grows thick like being underwater. Speculation is rampant. Are these places ancient power stations? Burial sites for beings we no longer remember? Astronomical engines, or something darker? Traps, prisons, sealed rooms containing forces better left alone? We do not know, because every time someone attempts to investigate too deeply, the trail goes cold. Maps disappear, funding dries up, or worse, people change their minds. One promising archaeologist who once championed a deeper study of Tioga's vaults eventually denounced them, calling the structures the product of imaginative folklore, but those who knew her said she was different afterward, quieter, more withdrawn, constantly watching the woods behind her house. There are reports, difficult to verify, but persistent, of a seventh chamber, one that has never been entered, buried beneath a hill whose name no one will speak. This vault is said to hum with a low vibration that can be felt through the ground. Its entrance is rumored to be sealed by a capstone engraved with a spiral and 3 notches. Some believe this final chamber holds the key, the nexus of the network. Others say opening it would be a catastrophic mistake. What we do know is this. Someone built them with meticulous care, with exceptional skill, and for a purpose that is now lost to time. And they are still there, beneath the forest floor, untouched by the centuries, protected by an enigmatic silence. If you ever find one, you will recognize it. The ground will feel colder, the trees will stand unnaturally still, and for a fleeting moment, you will feel as if you are not alone. Because perhaps you are not. The Panther Valley lies in the shadow of the Blue Mountains, where the ridges crest like frozen waves and the forests feel older than the wind itself. It is a quiet, rugged place, marked by remnants of coal country and long-abandoned footpaths. But among those who have inhabited its wooded hollows for generations, one story continues to echo through time, a story about a place no one discusses too loudly. They call it the Forbidden Cave. It is not on any official map. If you ask about it in Lahittan or Nesquehoning, you will likely be met with a shrug or a guarded look. But a few old-timers, if approached in the right way, might nod slowly and gesture toward a depression near the base of a rock wall. Don't go looking for it, they will advise. Whatever's down there, it isn't meant for us. The cave goes by many names, the black hole, the breathing mouth, the gate, but most simply call it what it is, forbidden. The entrance is a narrow slit, barely visible beneath a ledge of slate and thick moss. Those who have found it describe a steep drop into blackness. The air inside is not just cool. It feels wrong, stale, dry, and heavy like a forgotten attic filled with dust that no one remembers disturbing. Deeper within, the cave opens up, not into a natural grotto, but into a deliberate space. The walls are too smooth, the corners too precise. It is a place that was shaped, not eroded. The first known record of the cave dates to 1831, from the journal of a trapper named Elias K. Warner. He wrote of discovering a narrow door in the hill while tracking a wounded animal. He entered, lantern raised, and followed a path downward until he reached a chamber unlike any cave I have seen, with stonework done by hand and walls that glowed faintly blue as if dusted with stars. He claimed to see symbols carved into the rock, spirals, eyes, and strange figures. In the center of the chamber stood a stone altar with something resting upon it, something he could not describe, only that it pulled at the eyes and the mind. He never went back to the cave. His journal concludes abruptly a few entries later, with a single final sentence beneath the account. I was not meant to find it. Since then, stories have gradually collected like soot on an old lamp. In the 1920s, a group of teenagers supposedly found the cave while hiking. One of them, a boy named Dale, went missing. His friends returned alone, trembling and unable to speak. Days later, Dale emerged from the forest, silent, pale, and transformed. He never spoke another word and died in a mental institution in the 1970s. His records were sealed. Others who have entered the cave have reported bizarre phenomena: a humming sound with no discernible source, lights that flicker behind closed eyelids, and sudden sensations of vertigo and time distortion. Watches stop working, batteries drain, and voices echo strangely, repeating words that were never spoken. A local woman who ventured inside in the 1980s claimed to have lost 3 hours. She came out with the soles of her boots worn through and a set of 3 puncture marks on the back of her neck. Her medical records described the wounds as unexplained but surgical in precision. But what truly unnerves those who know of the cave are the objects. Artifacts, if they can be called that, have been discovered near the entrance over the years. Pieces of obsidian shaped like keys, coins with no markings, and, on one occasion, a small tablet made of an unknown metal etched with a grid of tiny raised squares. A geologist who analyzed the metal tablet stated that it did not correspond to any known alloy on Earth. The tablet disappeared from his laboratory before further analysis could be conducted. Local legends connect the cave to older myths, tales of beings who lived beneath the mountains, neither human nor animal. They were said to be watchers, caretakers, or jailers, depending on the storyteller. One tale passed down by the Lenape speaks of a mouth in the earth where the sky once fell. It was to be guarded for eternity. If opened, the story warns, the songs of the stone will call back the others. Even more peculiar are the stories from people who have dreamed of the cave before ever seeing it. More than a few locals, when shown sketches of the cave's entrance, turn pale. I've seen that. They say in a dream years ago they described descending stone steps, seeing a chamber illuminated by a soft blue light, and feeling a presence, something just out of view, observing, always observing. In 2003, a research team from a small private institute tried to survey the site with sonar and ground-penetrating radar. They claimed to have detected vast open spaces beneath the cave, a network of tunnels and chambers that extended for miles. Before they could return for an excavation, the land was abruptly purchased by an anonymous buyer. Fencing was erected, and access was denied. The cave, once known only through whispers, vanished from public view once more. Some believe the cave was once a temple built by a pre-human civilization with knowledge far beyond our own. Others think it is a natural rift, a weak point between dimensions. A few are convinced it is a prison, something constructed to contain a force we were never meant to encounter. And then there is the cave's behavior. It seems to resist being found. Maps become unreliable. GPS fails. Hikers wander in circles for hours, only to pass the same tree repeatedly. And when they finally do locate the entrance, the forest falls silent, as if it is watching, waiting, and judging the intentions of those who have arrived. There are a few who claim to have seen what lies deeper beyond the first chamber. They speak of an immense corridor lined with tall, smooth pillars. These pillars are said to hum when touched, and carvings on the walls seem to shift when stared at for too long. At the far end is a doorway, sealed by a stone slab covered in interlocking spirals. No one has opened it, at least not yet. The cave is more than just stone and shadow. It is an anomaly, a wound, a doorway, a monument. It does not behave like a natural place because it is not one, and those who stumble upon it often emerge changed, subtly and quietly, as if the cave demands something in return for letting them leave. Most people now avoid the area, but a few keep a silent vigil. They visit the edge of the forest and leave small offerings, stones stacked in a particular way, feathers bound with twine, or copper coins pressed into tree bark. They do not explain why. They simply nod and walk away. And if you ever do find it, if you wander the quiet woods of Panther Valley and see that black opening beneath the stone, think carefully before stepping inside. Because some doors open in both directions, and not everything that comes through is meant to leave. The sun descends slowly over the Delaware Water Gap, casting a golden light across the ridges and reflecting on the surfaces of forgotten streams. It is a place of wild beauty, rich with trails and hidden waterfalls. But in the highlands, just beyond the well-trodden paths where the trees grow dense and the air feels still, there's a final rumor, a mystery as old as the stones themselves. They call it the Sleeping Stone Giant. Unlike the underground vaults, the petroglyphs, or the Forbidden Cave, this is not a structure or a chamber. It is a shape, colossal, unbroken, lying across the land, as if the mountain itself once took a breath and then became still. If you stand in the right place near Kittatinny Ridge and gaze out across the valley, the landscape forms a perfect figure, a human body reclining, face turned to the sky, arms at its sides and legs together. The hills create the torso, a cliff defines the jaw, trees grow along the ridgeline like hair, and the proportions are strikingly accurate. This could be dismissed as pareidolia, another instance of the human mind seeing patterns where none exist. But for over a century, hikers and naturalists have observed something strange about the formation. The symmetry is too precise, the curves too deliberate. More than that, it appears to shift. Photographs taken decades apart reveal changes in the silhouette, slight alterations in the chin, the slope of the chest, even the position of the arms. Satellite imagery has recently confirmed this. The changes are real, but they occur so gradually, so subtly, that no one notices until the images are compared side by side. Some attribute it to simple erosion, but others are not convinced. Local Lenape stories speak of this landform not as a sleeping giant, but as a guardian, a being placed there long ago to keep something in or something out. In their oral traditions, the land was molded by the Skywalkers, celestial architects who built not with tools, but with thought and time. The giant was one of their own, sealed in stone, resting until the stars returned to a specific alignment. Interestingly, these stories describe the ground beneath the giant as hollow, with stone wombs beneath the surface where light sings and memory walks. Several independent ground scans, conducted quietly by university teams in the 1990s, detected massive voids beneath the ridgeline, cavities the size of buildings. However, no drilling or excavation was ever permitted. The area is located within protected federal land, and the National Park Service has strictly enforced access restrictions ever since those findings came to light. But the local tales persist and grow stranger. Campers have reported odd sensations while staying near the ridge, dreams that feel too real. One man awoke screaming after seeing a silver face rising from the valley. A woman described hearing a deep heartbeat in the ground that synchronized with her own until she lost consciousness. Compasses go haywire, clocks stop, and animals avoid the highest point of the ridge, moving in wide arcs around it. There is also a curious absence of vegetation across certain parts of the giant's face. Trees will not grow there, and moss spreads in perfect lines. Geologists call it coincidence, but those who have tried to plant in those spots say something in the soil rejects life. One gardener claimed to have dug just below the surface and found a layer of smooth black stone, cold to the touch, unbreakable, and humming softly. Theories are abundant. Some say the Sleeping Stone Giant is a remnant of ancient Earth energies, a convergence point where geomagnetic fields once crossed, leaving behind a petrified conduit of unknown power. Others believe it is a biological entity, a living being now encased in stone, preserved in some form of suspended animation. A few suggest it is not a being at all, but a vessel, a craft that landed or was buried long ago, its true form disguised by time and terrain. And then there are the lights. Faint glows are often seen at night, small, bluish orbs drifting just above the treetops. Sometimes they pulse, sometimes they vanish in an instant. A park ranger once pursued one, thinking it was a drone or a hiker's flashlight, only to watch it drop vertically into the earth and disappear without a sound. He refused to speak about the incident afterward. In 2011, a local historian and amateur cartographer overlaid a celestial star chart onto a map of the Water Gap. The result was uncanny. The sleeping giant's position aligned perfectly with the Orion constellation. His face beneath Betelgeuse, his belt matching the twin valleys carved by the Delaware River, and his feet stretching toward the position of Sirius. The alignment was not perfect, but it was close enough to be provocative. Was this formation designed to mimic Orion, or was it intended to summon something down from it? An old Lenape chant, recorded by missionaries in the 1700s, translates roughly to, "When the hunter lies still and the wolf forgets the moon, the mountain will breathe again and the sky will open." No one knows what it meant. But in light of the giant's shifting form, some believe it is a prophecy. More recently, hikers have reported tremors in the area, small, localized quakes that do not register on seismic maps. One group camping near the ridge in 2022 claimed the ground rose slightly beneath their tents during the night, just enough to lift their gear an inch or two. They thought it was a prank until they realized the slope around them had changed. Trees had shifted position, and a new crack had appeared in a nearby boulder that had not been there the day before. The notion that the land could move on its own, that something under the soil might still be alive, is deeply unsettling. But in Pennsylvania, such ideas have quietly lingered behind every legend we have explored. The Susquehanna mounds that hum, the stone monoliths aligned with the stars, the petroglyphs whispering of sky beings, the Tioga vaults that defy time, and the cave that takes more than it gives. Each one points to the same eerie possibility. Something else was here. Something that built, watched, waited, and perhaps still does. The sleeping stone giant may be the final piece of the puzzle, or just another chapter. But whatever it is, structure, symbol, or sentinel, it stirs something ancient in those who see it. Because deep down, we recognize its shape. It is not just a mountain. It is a memory, and perhaps a warning.